Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Sacred Anarchies, a post-church podcast. I am here, as per my usual, with my colleague, my co-creator, my bestie, Barry Taylor. How are you, Baz?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. What are you up to?
Well, it's been a rugged day of non-spring-like weather. The
Yes,
wind is insane. It's been raining. It's been a bit gloomy. Um,
it
oh,
hailed here.
yeah, I did a lot of reading today. Did a little bit of pottery.
You did pottery?
Well, actually, clay is for a project, but yeah.
I feel like I don't even know who you are anymore. Pottery? I've never known you to, I've known you to draw on pottery.
Well, yeah, I can't really talk about it either because I started that thing,
Yeah.
the rebel art thing. So it's for that, but I can't really reveal it because if anybody that's in that knows, then it's going to spoil the thing. I shouldn't have said that in the first
Top
place. But
secret.
anyway, yes, I'm messing around with clay. It's been on my mind for a long time.
I like it. I can't wait to see what you're cooking up over there.
Mm. I'm building a house.
Speaking of cooking up, we have a lot cooking up over at H& Co these days, and we're going to talk about it on the podcast briefly
We
today.
are, we are, and we're going to start off by saying congrats to you on your chapter in a book that came out last week and that seems to be doing quite well on Amazon.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, I was part of a compilation, part of a collection of authors and writing that was put out just this past Friday. The name of the book is called Before You Lose Your Mind, Deconstructing Bad Theology in the Church. And the reason why it's called that, and the reason for the book in general, is that it was designed to be a counter and an alternative to the Gospel Coalition's book on deconstruction entitled Before You Lose Your Faith, Deconstructing Doubt in the Church. So essentially, the Gospel Coalition has tried to co opt this term and this concept of deconstruction. I'm sure they see the windfall of devastation in terms of the numbers continuing to decline, people leaving the church en masse, all these things we know and we talk about often. But yeah, they basically wrote this book. And I have a really hard time when people prey upon and exploit the vulnerabilities of those going through very deep and profound faith transitions and
Sure.
transformation, because there is a lot of fear in that process. You're always thinking, am I wrong? Am I wrong? And because people have been indoctrinated and potentially traumatized and potentially abused, you have these things living in the back of your brain. What if I'm wrong about all this? Or what if I'm wrong about the hell that I don't believe in anymore? What if I'm wrong about original sin and after, and all of these things. And so people very bravely and courageously move forward to try and, again, what people are calling at a pop culture level, deconstruct their
Yeah.
Christianity or a certain way of engaging Christianity. And then you have a massive organization like the Gospel Coalition, which is damaging enough, by the fact of its mere existence. But then they're trying to tell people how to do this. And no surprise here, the way they're telling people to deconstruct is more Christianity, not less Christianity, deconstruct with Jesus, deconstruct in the church. They're really um,
It's such that classic, it's that classic scenario where rather than examining one's own issues,
yeah,
you essentially challenge somebody else's when the root of the problem is actually exactly what's happening with that book.
yeah,
They're attacking anything that isn't what they've already got going. And they
exactly.
see that as the reason why people, so the problem is in deconstruction. The problem's not in the existing forms of conservative Christianity. It's just such a weird inversion of the way things are.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. Well, anyway, I hope the book does really well.
Yeah, well, the idea was that it would be offered up anytime anyone searched for the Gospel Coalition's book. And that's exactly what's happening. So if someone is
Uh,
searching for their book, ours will pop up right next to it. And the really exciting thing about ours being popped up, and by ours, I mean the Choir publishing book
yeah.
that we're talking about here, it has bestseller next to it. And it has been number one in the oddly enough, apologetics Christian theology category since Friday when it was released. It's been at the top, number 2 being Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. So something to be excited about and proud of. And yeah, even though the work we do, Barry, I don't think either one of us would say that we do deconstruction work full time.
No,
But I was asked to be a part of this project, and I was very keen to do it for the reasons,
I think
mentioned.
you were the right person for them to ask, actually, because you write well and you really understand that world. I just got taken aback by the fact that C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity is the number 2 in that list. It's like, what?
I
Okay,
know, and sort of like
I have
it's like
no.
Steve Strobel. It's crazy. These guys are still at the top of the Christian
It's
theology apologetics.
just, I mean, nothing changes, and then you wonder why, when the whole world, I mean, Mere Christianity, it's an interesting book. I mean, I have no judgment against it, and it's probably one of those books that everybody probably ought to read at some point in time, but the fact that it remains at number 2 in the world in which we live actually tells you something about the problem your book is addressing.
It does, doesn't it?
Because it's not that that book wouldn't have things to say about the current state of things, but it's addressing a very, very different world.
Very different context, a
But
very
hey,
different
whatever. I don't want to
context.
rag on C.S. Lewis. He's a fellow Brit. I'm sure he wore tweed, so he's got that going for him.
Yeah.
He had that wardrobe thing.
Head to Amazon, get the book. They made it as cheap as possible to be able to still be sold on Amazon because they don't want price to be an issue. So the Kindle version is 99 cents. So anybody can go and grab it. If you're like me and you like to have print and mark everything up, that's only a $9.99 purchase. And my chapter in the book is called No More Circles Beyond Certainty. So, and it's actually been really fun over the last week, or less than a week now, I guess. I've had so many messages from people I don't even know who've read the book and who've read the chapter and who've just messaged me really kind things about my contribution to the book. So it's been a really fun couple of days.
And nobody trying to get you saved?
I always get a little scared. I see the messages come through on Facebook or Instagram or even my email. I'm guessing people are getting my email from my website, mariafrancescafrench.com. But every time I see one, I'm always like, okay, I'm going to open this, but I'm really afraid it's going to be someone rebuking me. But I haven't had any rebukes yet, which is good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well done.
So we have that. Thanks for asking about that, because it's fun to talk about. But also some bigger fish to fry here. We are releasing and have released a brand new culture course that I am particularly super excited about. In general, I think we put out culture courses that are really of an excellent nature, packed with really good content. We're trying to give people the best of so many things when we present stuff to them. But this one, for whatever reason, I'm particular. This kind of rises to the top for me. I'm really excited about this. Do you want to drop the name?
Yeah, it's called Faith Without Illusions, Love, Art, no, Sex, Drugs, Art, and God.
All right, I'm not going to edit that out, but let's say the title again to do the big pomp and circumstance.
Why don't you say it?
Okay. Faith Without Illusions, Sex, Drugs, Art, and God.
See, you did it so well. You should always make those announcements, because I always forget halfway through what it is that I said, and because what I was thinking is, Freud used the term sexual love, so then that's where it threw me.
Yeah,
and it's a class based on inspired by one of my favorite books that Freud wrote, called Civilization and Its Discontents. In fact, I think it was his first major publication. Well, it's published in 1930, but it's about the tensions between individuality and society, that whole issue of the contradiction between the demands of a society and the desire for sort of individual freedom. But deeper than that, he sort of talks about how we handle what he calls the hardship and vicissitudes of life, and he uses the term palliatives, and he says that as human beings, we create ways to deal with life's difficulties. And for him, there are four major palliatives: sexual love, hence the sex; intoxicants, hence the drugs; art, which is very interesting. And that always seemed like, when I first read it, that always seemed like the strangest one in the mix, and then the last one is God. And he sort of examines the way in which they function, what they do, why we use them, and then he affirms the use of those, but then also critiques, and he reserves. This is where Freud really begins to challenge what he thinks is the illusion of faith. So we're going to look at those four palliatives and we're going to take on Freud's critique of religion, and then we're going to hopefully lay out this other trajectory of a faith without illusions, one that's sort of embedded and rooted in reality, not in escaping from reality. Because that's Freud's real critique, is that, we need respite from life. But like everything, if it becomes your preoccupation, it then becomes a poison rather than something that offers a balm or healing. So that's going to be our class. So I think it's going to be really interesting.
Really good. And I think the reason why I'm so excited about it is because I really do feel like this is where our work centers in moving faith and understanding of meaning-making mechanisms beyond constructs of illusion, beyond escapism, beyond, we talk about it all the time, metaphysicality, supernaturalism, into ways that are embedded in the material world, but leave room for more than just the material.
I mean, I think you're right. I think that this really actually gets at the heart of the theological work that we do. And while we're using Freud's book, it's not a class about Freud. It's actually a theology course that's using elements of his work, because there are these interesting contradictions. For instance, Freud talks about our use of intoxicants, and you get in a lot of churches, well, be not drunk with wine wherein is excess, be filled with the Spirit, and so on and so forth. But a lot of people forget that in the book, in the book of Proverbs, it says, let the poor get drunk to forget their trouble. So you actually have two differing opinions on the role of drunkenness. And, someone can go, oh yeah, well, that's the Old Testament and now we're in the New Testament. But it's never that simple. So we're dealing even with a sort of contradiction in understanding. And why would you tell the poor to get drunk and forget their trouble? If you were God, wouldn't you just sort out their troubles for them? See, this is what Freud says. This is where it becomes problematic, because you presume that this is going to happen and it doesn't. And so you have to find ways to cope, and so we're going to explore all of these issues, which I think are key issues. I mean, in that whole deconstruction conversation that you've been a part of, and we did one of our courses on the whole issue of sexual love, who we love, who we're allowed to love, why we should love this person, right, this gender rather than that, or all of those things. Well, Freud has a lot to say about how we understand those things, and then art, and of course religion itself, and the idea of God, the very idea of God. Where does that fit in a faith without illusion? So that's what we're going to talk about. And it starts the 27th of May, right?
27th of May. So people have like a good 3.5 weeks to sign up, figure it out, what it's all about. The links are live now, so you can head to the website. We're going to keep it in the show notes. But, I think the interesting thing about Freud, well, there's so much interesting about him, and he was by no means perfect. And we kind of engaged a little bit with some of the imperfections of his work in our sexual ethics class we did earlier this fall. But, a lot of Christians will look at Freud and say, oh, well, he was debunked is the favorite word,
Yeah,
or he was overturned, or, people took his work further and went past him or whatnot. But
yeah,
again, like you said, it's not a class about Freud, really. We're utilizing Freud's work because it was such a good and articulate and helpful and useful critique of religion in terms
yeah,
of a particular set of ideas and a particular construct of God that we have not grown out of. And by we, I mean Western society.
yeah,
And so it really does still hold true. And so we're going to be engaging with his critique, of course, but we're also going to be dialoguing with, some other thinkers, some
yeah,
theologians who have similar things to say. And we're really going to be jumping out into society and culture and seeing just how far this critique goes. And like, even more than that, really, how far the tendrils of a particular brand of Christianity go into culture
yeah,
and into society,
yeah,
where some of those problems might lie. And if we can get to the issues and if we can kind of unwrap the problem a little bit, I think it will help us move forward in really fresh ways for people who still really want to engage faith. Now, there are a lot of people who are deconstructing, dismantling, disentangling, whatever you want to say, and they just want to be done. They're like, I don't like this. I just want to be an atheist. And that's really valid and
sure.
that's really okay. But there are a lot of people who still very much want to continue on in the narrative of Christianity and who still want to engage meaning in that way.
Yeah,
So
and of
I
course,
think it's
yeah,
going to be really helpful for people.
yeah. I mean, just a couple of quick thoughts. One is, regardless of people's, and I had this. I think I would probably call it an argument, but I had this argument when I was teaching at the theological school that I taught at with a lot of students, because I did a sort of cornerstone class on theology and culture. And one of the things that I said we need to be aware of is we need to be aware of, like, who we're speaking after.
Hmm.
And I said one of the things that was really important to note was that regardless of how you feel about somebody like Freud, whether you debunk his theories, you think it's all bogus or whatever, the way we talk about things like the unconscious, the ego, all of those things, that
Yeah,
that vocabulary and terminology arose out of the work that Freud and others were doing, and it's become part of the way without reflection we talk about things. It's a bit like we all, I mean, there are books written, evolutionary faith, and all that stuff, and we don't realize that terminology emerges after Darwin. There are always these key figures or key ideas that move into the cultural ether and into the cultural consciousness,
yeah.
and we talk after them. So yeah. And the other thing I was going to say is completely gone from my mind.
That's okay.
Um,
I feel like you said enough, more than enough, for
yeah.
people to head to the webpage and check it out and register and sign up, because we would love to have you. We'd love to have this discussion with you. You get 4 weeks of live lectures and interactions. And as with all of our courses, if you can't make it live, and a lot of people can't, you can go to the learning platform at your leisure and watch the course on your own time. So
Oh,
yeah.
I know what I was going to say
Oh,
now. What I
okay.
was going to say was, you said that some people just want to be done with faith, and as
Yes.
you said that, I was reminded of Simon Critchley's notion of the faith of the faithless, that there is the potential for those without faith to have faith, and that will be part of our discussion as well, I think.
Absolutely. I love it. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for hanging with us this week. That's don't talk about Freudian.
Yeah, that's a Freudian slip right there.
Yeah. But yeah, as you can see, we're really excited about this course, excited to get you this content, and yeah, excited to hang with you for the next 4 weeks and have some very cool and very meaningful discussions. So anything else you want to say, Baz, for this week?
No, I think we probably said enough, right?
We always say more than enough, I think.
All right, yeah, probably so. Waffling on, waffling on.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much. We'll see you again soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.